I hope you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. That's great. So,
Yes, we can all see it.
good afternoon from here. I'm Ronald Wache, Orange Co-Director, and I'll be leading this session on open research workflow. Thank you very much for joining today. So, what we are going to do today is to try and understand what an open research workflow is, and then
Emmanuel, sorry, could you raise your voice a bit?
Okay. So,
Yeah.
what we are going to do is that we're going to try and understand what an open research workflow is, and see how we can develop an open research workflow. And then we'll look at the phases of an open research workflow. So that will be what we're going to do today. And the reason why we are doing this session is that we realize that open science is quite broad, right? In our introductory session, we talked about the values, the principles, and then the tools, and a lot of things, a lot of concepts that you have to learn. And all these have to do with the research process. So it can be a bit confusing. It can be a bit tough to try and see how you can integrate all of this into your research work. Let's say, if you want to conduct a research, the question comes in, when does, let's say, reproducibility come in? Does it come in when I'm collecting the data, or do I have to consider it at the beginning? Or does it come in later when I'm publishing, then maybe I share my data openly? So there are a lot of questions that can come up. Even if you know the open research principles and understand them and know some of the tools, when and how you may apply them in your research can be a bit confusing and difficult. So the idea of this session is to give a guide. I mean, there are different ways to go about it, but just to give a guide, an idea of how, let's say, if you want to do research and then you are someone who is interested in open science, familiar with the open science principles and concepts, you know the tools, how you can kind of integrate some of them, the principles and tools, into your research. So at the end of the day, you have a process from the beginning to the end that's really, really open. So to start, we are trying to go to understand what an open research workflow is. And here we are saying that it is a systematic approach to conducting research openly at every stage of the research process. This is quite important. At every stage of the research process, from planning to dissemination, using open principles and tools. So the idea of an open research workflow is to help the researcher to conduct research from the beginning of the research, where there is ideation, to publication, or let's say engagement, where there is sharing. Conduct it in an open manner so that whatever can be accessible, whatever can be shared is easily shared, and whatever tools need to be used can be easily used. So that's the idea of an open research workflow. And the goal is to ensure that transparency, reproducibility, and collaboration is ensured throughout the entire life cycle. I think generally we said that open science is trying to promote transparency, reproducibility, collaboration, and a lot of other principles that are currently not really existing within the research space. So if you are someone that is aware of open science and the principles, a way you can kind of help the research community achieve this is to kind of conduct research using an open research workflow. So that's the general idea. And the reason why we say it's a systematic approach is the fact that it doesn't just happen. The fact that you know open access, open data, open peer review doesn't mean it will automatically happen when you decide to conduct a research. It's something that you have to consciously decide and plan on. So now we're going to look at how, as a researcher, you'll be able to develop an open research workflow. So these are just some key guidelines that we are going to give you. And then we talk about the fact that it ensures transparency, reproducibility, and collaboration, right? And the reason why we are saying this is because when you allow all your research and activities and decisions shared, it makes it easier if you are, let's say, have a funder or you have institutions that are trying to collaborate with you. It makes it easier for them to assess whatever you have. And then if you openly share them, it is easy for others to also replicate your results, right? Help them to kind of validate what you've done. It kind of ensures that what you have done is something that is reliable or can be trusted. And also ensures that after your research is done, people can easily say, okay, this is something we can build on because he has provided enough information for us to kind of understand and assess it. So it enhances trust, facilitates verification, and increases impact. So if you want to ensure that people trust your work, if you want to ensure that people will say that your work was really done well because they've tested it and then they have approved it, you want to ensure that your work is impactful, people can kind of build on it, then it's important that you consider an open research workflow when you are planning your research. This is quite important Because the fact that you may integrate some tools at certain points doesn't necessarily mean you are going by an open research workflow. So it's important that you understand what it is and what it's trying to achieve and then how you can go about it. So now we move on to how you can develop an open research workflow. And these are just guidelines. There are a lot of information that you find out there, but we're just providing these guidelines, kind of summarizing them into 3. And the first one is that you have to plan your research with openness in mind. When you decide that I want to conduct a research, let's say on why malaria is prevalent in your community, you have to understand the fact that eventually you have, let's say, humans, maybe you get clinical data, you know that you're going to have, let's say, maybe individuals or participants in there, maybe you know you're going to collect data in a certain way. When you are thinking about this, make sure you're also thinking about openness. The idea is when I'm planning my research, I'm also considering what are the various stages that I am going to go through in kind of achieving my research objectives, and how can I make anything at any of these stages which I can share open. So you have to start from there. The moment you consider a hypothesis or a topic and you're thinking about it, you also have to think about openness from the beginning to the end. So you are thinking about the latter stage. If you are sharing your research, how can you share it openly? How can you kind of promote certain aspects of open science that deal with, let's say, publication or peer review? These are things you have to consider at the very early stages. You don't start the research before you consider openness. You consider it at the very, very early stages. The second one is to determine which open principles, tools, and platforms you use. Like I said earlier, open science is broad, the principles are broad, and because of that, the tools are so many. So you have to decide that if I'm going to go with open data, what are the tools I'm going to use to collect my data? Is it open source? Can I easily share the data in an interoperable way? Does it go by the FAIR principle? You have to consider all these things. And because there are various tools, you have to know the ones you can use. It's also important that I am familiar with this platform and it meets the open principles or open science concepts, so I can use it. And you also have to consider whether these things are easy to integrate or use, and especially by your team members too, because it's important that when you're working with people, they understand all these things. So you need to find out if you are going to go by reproducibility. So if you say you want to make your research reproducible, does it only happen, let's say, when you publish your paper and you share the results with the publisher and then you add your data and your methodology? Does that make your work reproducible? If no, then you consider how you can make it reproducible. Like, let's say, the tools you are going to use, then maybe how you collect the data, like including metadata and all these things. It's something you have to consider at the early stages. Like when you are planning your research, you have to consider all these things at the early stage, so that you know that, okay, when I move from planning to implementation, like I'm conducting the research, this is what I'm going to do at the early stage. When I'm collecting the data, I'm using this tool. When I'm doing this, I'm using this tool. When I'm analyzing, I'm using this tool. When I'm sharing, I'm using this tool. So it's important that you know it at the very, very early stages. And the last one, which is also quite important, very, very important, is ensuring all the team members are trained in open research practices and understand its importance. This is very, very key, because the fact that you know open science, you understand the principles, you know the tools, doesn't mean everyone does. So if you are working in a collaborative community or in a collaborative environment where you're not the only one conducting the research, you need to let people understand why they need to use certain tools, why they have to apply certain principles. This is quite important. So you have to ensure that your team members, all of them, are trained on how to kind of practice open research. And the tools they are supposed to use, they are aware of them. And then why it's important. If you're not going to do the data analysis, let's say you are conducting a research and you're not going to do the data analysis, someone else is going to do for you. It is important you let them understand that this is how you want your research to be done. I want it to be done openly. And this is the idea I have. So do you think there is a tool that is maybe open source, or that will make the data analysis very, very interoperable? There's something you have to consider, discuss, talk about, train when it's necessary, so that everyone you are working with understands that we are using an open research workflow, and these are the tools we are using at each and every stage. It's very important you do this at the beginning of your research, at the very beginning, else when you go downstream analysis and process can become very complicated and you can get confused if you don't have a plan in place. So now we're going to look at how you can kind of go about developing the open research workflow, looking at the various stages in a research. So we are going to look at it from the planning phase, the conducting phase where you're actually doing the experiment or the research, and then the reporting phase. When you go online, when you decide to look further into this, you realize that a lot of platforms, a lot of resources have different ways they kind of organize a research workflow. Some of them will break them down into, let's say, discovery, kind of doing a literary, they consider all these things. But then we have summarized them into the planning phase where you are now thinking about your hypothesis, you are now thinking about how you're going to conduct it. You are not even thinking about funding and all these things and then discussing with the team. And then the stage where you are like actually doing the research, you go to the lab, you take your data, or you go out there, you collect data. And then when you are finally done with that, how you're going to share your data or report your data. So we're going to look at it from these stages. And then at each of these stages, we are going to talk about some of the tools you can use. They are just examples. They are not, let's say, written in stone. There is no one size fits all approach to an open research workflow. It's important to notice this. So a researcher can choose to go with a certain tool. Another person can choose to go with a different tool. It depends on your preference. But it is just to give an idea of how you can do this. So let's look at what happens during the planning phase. So the planning phase, in order to ensure that your work is done appropriately, it's important to establish clear objectives and hypotheses. And this will kind of cement the direction and the purpose of your research. When you know how you're supposed to go, like the purpose and the direction of your research, it helps to ensure that all your team members understand why each tool comes at each point. So if you say, okay, we are doing this research and then we are moving from this stage to another, and this is why we need this tool, this is why we need this this platform here, and this is how it will help us achieve this objective, both for the research and then both for an open research workflow, open science. It makes it easier for everyone to be on board. And it helps everyone to be able to focus and kind of collaborate easily. So it's important to establish clear objectives and hypotheses. And we are not only talking about objectives in terms of, let's say, what the research wants to achieve. Let's say I want to find out what the prevalence of malaria is. So the objective is maybe to see the numbers that are increasing or whatever. No, you also have to outline open research objectives too. Like, what are the objectives you want to achieve during your research work in terms of making it open? This is something that you have to clearly establish so that everyone understands why they are doing something, where they will kind of easily collaborate. And the next one is to also ensure that you comply with all ethical principles and guidelines that are required for the kind of research you are doing. So before you even think about, let me conduct research openly, you also have to think about the ethics that are involved. This is very, very important, especially when we know you are dealing with data that has to do with humans. It's important that you consider this so that people will know that even if you are operating openly, even if you are trying to conduct research openly, they can still trust you. They can still believe that, no, I mean, the part that is not supposed to be shared is not shared, because people always have concerns about data privacy. So it's important that before you even begin, you consider these two things. The fact that you establish clear research objectives, both for your research and then for open science, and then ensure that you go by all the ethics that are related to conducting your research. Then next, we can talk about how you can go about planning your data. So it's important to have a data management plan called a DMP. This depends on the kind of research you are doing, the length of data, the amount of data you are collecting, and then how you're supposed to do it. But it's important that when you are planning your research, you outline how you're going to collect your data, how you're going to store it, how you're going to share, and how you're going to preserve it. I think these are concepts that relate with open data, open repositories, open assets. So when you are planning your research work, you have to consider how you're going to manage your data, considering all these various aspects. And this will ensure that your data collection adheres with FAIR principles. Currently, I think in our previous session, we talked about foolishness and plan, as where a lot of funders are saying, if they fund your work, it has to adhere to certain principles, such as FAIR, it has to be openly accessible. So in planning your research work, you have to ensure that you consider how you're going to meet these requirements from the funder. And then even if a funder doesn't establish that, how, as a researcher, you're going to ensure that your research meets the FAIR principles or the CARE principles, so that at the end of the day, later on, let's say when your research is shared, people can easily access it, people can easily use it, and it will improve your impact. So there's something that you have to consider at the very early stages. And there is a tool that you can use called DMP tool. I don't know. I think I will add the links to the slides before we share, so you can just go online and then see the tool and then see how the tool is used. We are not going to discuss how the tool will be used because that would make the session so difficult. But
hello, Emmanuel, sorry to interrupt, but the links are already in the icons, yeah.
Very good, very good, very good.
Yeah,
very
yeah.
good.
And also if you could please just speak a bit slower, that would be great.
Okay, okay, okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
I think I'm sure Zoe and Joseph must be
Yeah.
scratching their head.
Yes.
Yeah, Zoe
Yeah.
and Joseph must be scratching.
Thank
Zoe
you.
and Joseph,
Thank you
so
very
sorry
much,
about that.
Lami.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I felt you,
Zoe and
yeah.
Joseph. Yeah. Thank you, Lame. So I'll try and slow down again.
No worries.
We are
So
supporting you stoically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. So I'll try and slow down. So Lamis did the slide design, so she has added the tools. Thank you very much, Lamis. So you can just go and check DMP tool. You don't have to worry if you don't know how to use the tool. It's not compulsory for you to learn how to use the tool. You can decide to come up with your own way of collecting data, or your own way of storing data, your own way of sharing data or preserving the data. And there are also other tools you can use, so don't worry about that. But this is just an example of a tool that makes it easy for you to do some of these things, like how to develop a data management plan. The next one is DMP Online, which is also a tool that you can use. And then we move on to the next stage, like in the planning stage. Select open source tools and resources. And here we are talking about ensuring that whatever you use to do your data collection and analysis can be easily kind of assessed. I mean, you know about what open source is, right? So it's not just about the software itself, but the code too. So people can kind of take your code and then kind of work on it, change it to see how they can maybe reproduce or replicate what you're trying to do. It's also important that you select open source tools and resources. And this will make it easier for you, your team, and then people that would receive your research to be able to reproduce or replicate or kind of build on your data. And this is quite important. The other one that we can talk about is Kobo Toolbox. It's also a tool you can use. You can check it out. Don't worry about it so much. Like there are a lot of tools that we're going to talk about. Don't worry about them. It's just an example, so you can check it out. Or if you already have a tool that you use, you can just use it. You can use other basic tools that you think will make it easier for you. So that's up to you. But the idea is that when you are thinking of data collection and analysis and then resources that you're going to use, like software, make sure that these software are open source so that if someone has to do, let's say, your analysis, they don't have to go and buy subscriptions before they can use, because some of the softwares, the outputs, you can only use the same software to kind of open the output. That's how some of the softwares work. So if you're analyzing your data with a software that is closed, it could be that before someone can kind of analyze your data, they would also have to use the same software. And before they can use the software, they have to kind of buy or purchase a license, which can be a bit difficult for some people. So it's important to consider this too when you are doing your planning of your research work, that the tools and the resources you are using are open source or open tools, so that anyone, whether they have let's say the funding or not, can easily access and analyze your research work and make it reproducible. So this is something you can also consider. And the other one that we also talk about is that you can pre-register your study. This is a concept that is becoming popular lately. Initially, pre-registration was not something that was popular, but it's becoming popular lately. The idea of pre-registration is that you kind of go to a platform and submit your research plan. It will be your hypothesis, your protocols, and then your analysis. So you do this before you even start conducting the research. That's the idea of pre-registering your study. And of course, it will have a DOI so that everyone knows that this is something you registered. And so that people, someone will not scoop your work. You can say, I registered this at this day, so it's not something you should worry about. And there's also another part of pre-registering your study. You can do it at a journal. And the idea of pre-registering your study at a journal is that it helps the journal assess the work you're about to do and see if it's something that they are interested in publishing. So when you pre-register your study, let's say you've gone through the planning, the hypothesis, you've come up with the data management plan, you've analyzed the tools and resources you want to use, you can go to a journal which allows you to pre-register your study and pre-register it. And when the journal accepts your pre-registration, that is, they review your research plan, your hypothesis, your objectives and everything, and they feel like, yes, this is a research we are interested in. When they accept your pre-registration, it becomes a registered report. So the registered report is like an accepted pre-registration. So if you register your research with, let's say, a journal before you actually start the research, that you are just submitting your proposal to them that I want to do the research, it becomes a registered report. And the reason why this is also becoming a popular concept is that there is the general notion that researchers tend to change a lot of things when they are conducting the research. Sometimes it's good, but sometimes it's bad. Because in conducting the research, some of them just tweak things so that the results become more appealing, right? They tweak things so that the results become more standardized to a certain way, whilst research is supposed to help us discover new things. So if you have a plan and you stick to it, even if your results are not necessarily sticking to standard, it could be that you are discovering something new. So the idea of pre-registration is to ensure that even if your results are negative, you still publish it. I mean, it's something that is a discovery. So it's something that has been established to push the agenda of negative results and ensuring researchers just don't treat things anyhow during the research because they feel like maybe time constraints or some limited resources, or because they think the results are skewed towards a certain way and they want it to meet a certain way, so they'll change it. So it kind of helps do that. So you can pre-register your study. So even before you kind of conduct your research is there. Everyone knows that Zori or Joseph or anyone here wants to conduct this research, and this is the plan they have. This is the objectives and everything. It's an interesting thing, and you can do it on the research registry platform or the OSF platform or the As Predicted platform. So these are all platforms that you can pre-register your research. And if you do it on a journal, like I said, it will become a registered report if it is accepted. So this is what you can do during the planning phase to ensure that your research is open. This is planning. And I also want to state emphatically that there are a lot of things you can also consider during your planning phase. I mean, depending on your research field, the kind of research you are doing, the idea is just to be aware of everything you are going to do, aware of everything you are going to do, and then how you're going to make it open. So that's the idea. So during the planning phase, that's what you can do. What am I going to do? How can I make it open? So you think about those things, then you can move forward with that. Now we're going to look at when we are conducting
Emmanuel, sorry, I just want to add a few one comment is that
sure.
We're all used to, we have this idea. We first have the idea, and then we just go with the flow. We just let this idea take us to discover the methodologies that we want to use, and we do that as we are doing the research. And I think this is the way that we're used to doing things, but now this is like becoming something that it's not favorable. It shows that you're not a person with robust thinking, with clear planning, good planning. So when you actually have a plan from the beginning, from the get-go, so before you start conducting your research, you have everything planned and set in place. So you have, how you're going to collect your data, how you're going to preserve it, you know all of these steps. So when you go and register this plan, this speaks volumes about you. It shows the general public that this person really knows what they're doing. They're not just doing things and then discovering things as they get go, and then they change the objectives of the research depending on what they have. And I think in Africa we really need that because there is a big misconception that we are we are just doing things in a chaos mode. So I think for us African researchers to really start about thinking about planning and pre-registering, it would be very important. Yeah. So this is what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Yeah, Lamis, that is great. And like you said, we really have to start thinking about such stuff because one of the issues that exists right now is that from the work here, there are a lot of biases existing when work comes from you. There's something we discussed, right? So doing this kind of establishes some credibility to your research. Like Lamis was saying, it tells everyone that yes, He knows what he's doing, and he pre-registered it. He had the plan and everything, and he did everything openly. So as a researcher, going by a research workflow kind of adds credibility to you as a researcher. People know that you because you are confident in what you are doing. You are not shy when it comes to sharing whatever you are doing at each stage, and you have a robust plan. So thank you very much, Lamis. Yeah. So now we are going to move to the conducting stage. That's when you are going to actually do your research work, right? So what are the things that we'll be doing during that stage? Data collection. So it is important to use standardized and transparent data collection method. This is something that came up during our sessions in reproducibility. We discussed how it's important to use standardized methods. And this makes it easier for others within your field to know how to understand and interpret the data. It's very, very important. If you just use any data collection method, others within your field or even outside may not know how the data was organized and how they can interpret it. But when you use a standardized and transparent data collection method, it makes it easier for people to kind of validate your research, reuse your research, or it makes it easier for people to say this is reliable. And this, like we were saying, ensures that there is integrity and impact of your research work. When people can easily understand your research, reuse it, it tells people that yes, there is someone that knows what they are doing and then they can build on your work. But when this information is not available, people may be interested in building your work, but they can't because they are those blockades, right? They are hindrances. They don't understand your data and they're unable to analyze it. So it's something that you have to really consider when you are collecting your data. Use standardized and transparent data collection methods. And depending on your field, there could already be standards that have been established when you're collecting, let's say, samples of humans or animals or whatever. And it's important to know these standards and use them. If there are no standards like we discussed during the sessions on reproducibility, you can create some. You understand open science, so you can create some certain standards that you think you can use to collect your data, and you can share these standards along with your data so that people understand how you collected the data and how they can kind of interpret and analyze it. So there's something that you can do when you are conducting your research. And then you can also talk about data storage. Make sure that when you are storing the data, it is well organized, well documented. This is where metadata comes in. I think we talked about metadata also during reproducibility. Ensure that the fine details, how you do file naming conventions, version control. What was the document that was created earlier? What was the final document? Ensure that you consider all these things when you're storing your data, so that it is easy for others who see your data to understand and reuse. So you can realize that all these things, all these concepts are around transparency, reproducibility, and collaboration. Those are the core principles. Everything you do ensure that people are easily able to understand your research or access it, reproduce it, or reuse it, and kind of collaborate with you. And this is very, very important because some research tools or some platforms also store the data in ways that are not easily accessible. So it's important you consider these things. And also, data storage platforms, depending on whether they are reliable or not, can just go off. You can store your data on, let's say, your hard drive and it can crash. I mean, I personally have had several instances where my hard drive crashes, or your device can get stolen. This is something that can happen. Or it can just, your Windows or your operating system can just crash. So you have to consider how you can store your data in a way that you will not lose it, in a way that all the information that you've provided is well documented and the formats are non-proprietary in the sense that someone doesn't have to, let's say, have a paid software, or they don't have to have a specific softwares before they can access it. Should be openly accessible softwares like or formats that can be easily used. This is something that is very important so that people will be able to kind of use your data and kind of interpret them. So it's very, very important that when you're considering data storage, you can think about cloud storage. I think these are some of the things that we're talking about. Cloud storage, what cloud storage will you use? Is it reliable? Is it something that will be there forever? I think about repositories, is this really that is reliable? So you should consider all these things when you're conducting your data and then you are collecting your data. And the platform that you can use is CIDR. But unfortunately, CIDR was created for the medical science or medical field, but it's openly usable. So you can check the platform and then see how you can use. So CIDR makes it easy for you to kind of integrate your research data and then the metadata along. So instead of saying having a lot of files and documents, you just have a platform that you can just share your metadata with anyone. It could be your funder, your collaborators, anyone can go there You are recording your results. You are just adding the various data and metadata. They makes it so easy. It's a platform that is easy to use, but you have to learn, yeah? And then the other one that we can talk about is data analysis. When you are analyzing your data, it's important to use open source software. I think we stress this during open source. Open source software is not just about being able to analyze the code should be available. People should be able to get the code you use to do your analysis and be able to tweak it. Let's say they want to use it for something else, you should be able to kind of tweak it or change it so that they can replicate your research or reproduce your research depending on what they are trying to do. This is also very, very important. Make sure the software, when you are conducting data analysis, is open source, so that the outcomes or output does not be stuff that are hidden behind paywalls, where you use a certain software to kind of do your analysis, and at the end of the day, people can't understand or do the same thing because the software you use is non-proprietary. It's like it's closed. It's non-proprietary, so people can't easily get access to it. You develop a tool, and then you use the tool to analyze your data, and no one has access to the tool. So it's only you that can actually do the data analysis or understand how you do the data analysis. That is not how to go about open research workflows. So make sure the tool you use is open source. If you develop the tool yourself, share the code on platforms such as GitHub or R. So this is something that's also important. Share your code, share your software code, share your analysis code, share your analysis scripts. Make sure anyone that wants to analyze your data knows exactly how you did it. Not just say, I use, let's say, ANOVA to analyze my research. No. Don't just mention how you did it. Share the analysis script, share the code, so people will know that, okay, this is what you did. This is the step they went by. This is what the results they had. So when they are trying to reproduce your results, they know exactly how you went around and how they can also kind of contribute to it.
Emmanuel, sorry to interrupt. I think Howard has a comment.
Okay.
He said IT cracking. So I was wondering a bit what he meant by that.
Yeah, I think Howard, we can allow him to speak.
Yeah.
So Howard, you can elaborate on IT cracking. I'm sure you posted when I was talking about open source, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Howard, we would love to hear your opinion.
Howard, could you unmute yourself? If I understood him correctly, it's something that I think some of us are guilty of, is that we used cracked version of the softwares, those really those really expensive softwares. So I think maybe he's mentioning that, and I think this is eventually a habit that we have to let go of. Because it's only like benefiting those companies, and it's not benefiting us, and not benefiting other people like who cannot like afford the software or crack it, So it's also like an ethical dilemma in the middle. Like, can I ethically use those cracked softwares? We understand that we are all coming from like developing countries, from low socioeconomic status, and we cannot afford like 2,000 for example US dollars to buy a software. As Ahmed said, it's also legal issues. There are legal issues, like if that, by the way, if that company and you published a paper with a cracked software, and then that company figured it out somehow, then they are allowed to sue you. And this is a big problem. And this also, sometimes the cracked versions have issues in them. The tech savvy people like Emmanuel and like they know, some cracked version have some flaws in them, so they could affect the analysis of your data. So this is why it's important for us to work harder to learn how to use open software, especially R. R, I think in the few coming years, it's going to be like a must for everyone to know how to use R, whatever your discipline is. Because we focus on the life sciences, but also the social sciences. You also, guys, you have a lot of analysis. So all of us, I think, at one point or another, will need to know how to code and use R. So this is my input on that, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Howard, for bringing that up. I think that's a genuine concern, right? I mean, over here, it's easier to use crack softwares than pay for them, like you said, because of the financial constraints. And it's like, you want to do the analysis, this is the tool you are familiar with, and the only way you can use it is the crack version. I mean, it's a huge concern in a real dilemma. Maybe we can have discussions around this, how we can kind of look about all these things. And as we are also talking about these things and having these sessions, it's something that you can also be thinking about, the fact that it's an issue. We are talking about open source software, we are talking about all these things, but then some of the software that are really, really important for certain research fields need to be paid for, or are behind some of these paywalls. So this is also something that you can talk about, like genuine concerns why maybe practicing some of these open research principles it's difficult, or it's not easy to achieve, especially for a researcher coming from the global south region because of the financial constraints. So thank you very much for Howard for bringing it up. It's a splendid contribution. Yeah. Then in terms of conducting the research too, we can talk about when you are recording your data. It's easy for us to normally, I remember when I was doing my undergrad, I was writing them in a notebook, then it's like, then you record it on your laptop, then these things that you can easily lose them. So how do you ensure that your experimental record is open? You can use simply open electronic notebooks online. These are easy to use. I mean, there are platforms that you can just record your lab results. You can even record anything. Let's say something new happens. Let's say you did something, you tweaked something at a certain point in time. And normally they allow version control, so you know the various things that you did on the date and the time. So it makes it easier, because when you go to the lab, although you may have a plan, a lot of things can happen, right? You can go and do observation and realize that something is different. So you need to change something that would maybe help you achieve your objective. And you need to note this down. But what we usually do is that we just do it and then we get the results and we forget that we did a certain tweak along the line. And then someone is doing a reproducibility study or applicability study, and they get to that point and they realize that, no, I'm following the method they have shared, but the result I'm getting is a bit different. That is because the little tweak you did whilst you were doing your experiment, you didn't record that, you didn't share that. So it's important to kind of use this electronic notebook so that you record everything. Today, I did this, today, this doesn't work, this is why I didn't work, today, this is the results we had. It's good to kind of document all these things so that later on, it's even going to help you. When we're doing reproducibility, we talked about how that it can help you later on if you want to do further research, or if you want to collaborate with other people, you know what you did to arrive at the final result. Even if you initially had a plan, certain changes can happen along the way. Like things may not go your way, you may have to adapt and etc. It's important to record all these things, because they may you may end up coming with a new way of doing something, but because you may not you have recorded it properly, you will get the results and be wondering how you achieve the results eventually. And that doesn't really help science, because we are not only interested in the results, we want to know how you arrive at the results. So it's important that you record your experimental results openly using online platforms like electronic notebooks. And you can use Jupyter. I think Jupyter has to do with code and stuff like that. You can use Google Colab, or you can use openlabnotebooks.org. These are platforms that you can check. Lamis has added the link, so you just, when you get a slide, just tap on it, control, you tap on it. You can just go to the platform, just check it. You can learn it, but if you think it's not relevant to you, can decide to use a different tool. But it's important that you consider that. Else, at the end of the day, you publish your paper and then a lot of issues will come. And when you look at the way the world is going, you realize that, like Lamis was saying, certain tools are becoming popular because the world is shifting towards open. So people are shifting towards cloud. So there will come a time where if you didn't use certain tools, if you didn't kind of conduct your research in a certain way, it may create a certain tag on you, right? Like Lamis was saying earlier, it may create a certain tag on you that maybe you don't want to share stuff because you are breaching certain ethical principles behind the scenes. That's why you don't want to conduct your research openly. It's important you do these things at the early stages whilst you are conducting your research. Go by this so that at any point in time, when you are required to prove or provide information as to why you arrive at a certain result, you can kind of provide the information. It's very important. And these are some of the things you can consider when you are conducting your research. There are a lot. Depending on the field you're working with, this can be more. This can be more than this. It can be more than this, or it can be less than this. But the idea is to ensure that at every stage of conducting your research, you consider what you are going to do how you're going to make it open and the tools and the resources you are going to use. Yeah. So now you're going to move to the reporting stage. When you are sharing your research work, you are done with planning it, you have conducted it, you've ensured that you've gone by this open research principle. Now we are going to report or share the results. So how can we also do this openly? We can do this by going by open data sharing, where we can submit them on open repositories, and there are a lot of them out there. It could be an institutional repository, it could be a platform like Africa Archive, which is open and free. It could be other platforms like Zenodo and Figshare, which are also easily accessible. And when you are considering this, you have to ensure storage, whether these platforms are reliable and sustainable, that your data will be there for as long as possible. So you have to consider all these things when you're talking about data sharing. So make sure your data sets are openly shared if they are possible according to the ethical principles. You know, it may be that certain aspects may not be easily shared. So as long as you can openly share the data, share them in open data repositories. Then another thing you can also consider is your methodology. There's a platform called Protocols.io that allows you to share your methodologies or protocols in a detailed manner. You can tell them, okay, I initially wanted to do this, but then I tweaked this, and then this is the result I had. So when you go to Protocols.io, you can get access to a lot of protocols that people use. So if I share my protocol, I can decide to make it open. But I was doing this research, and this was the plan and outcome, and this is the protocol I use. So you go there, you can just openly get access to a lot of protocols. And this also helps you to contribute to the research community in your field, in the sense that you do research, you share your protocol, people learn how you arrived at your results. And this is important, especially when we are talking about resource limited settings, because what happens in the lab may be different from what may happen in the lab in the global north. Because of limited resources and limited funding, researchers from the global north have to adapt in a lot of ways. And these ways can be quite ingenious. They can be quite brilliant. I mean, how researchers here come up with the results or are able to conduct their research can be so ingenious and brilliant, and kind of do away with a lot of the costs that are involved in conducting research. But the sad part is that the information is not out there. No one knows about these things. But if we share our protocols openly, our methodologies open, that, okay, I wanted to do this. This is how normally we extract DNA, but I was able to use water at this concentration to still extract DNA from red blood cells. And this was the result I had. And maybe the results were, I mean, at par with the standards that are being used in other parts of the world. You can share this methodology, you can share this protocol openly. And of course, credit will be given to you that you are the one who came up with this protocol and shared it. And this could be ingenious and novel ways of doing things that people don't know about, but we do them in our labs every time, and we keep it to ourselves. We don't share them, which is quite sad. So if you want to really conduct research openly, you have to consider how you're going to share your protocols openly too. It doesn't matter whether you tweak some things. If you can justify why you tweaked them, and that the fact that it helped you achieve the right results, if you didn't breach any ethical rules, share it openly so that others will also benefit. Because a lot of people are struggling with how to conduct certain research because of limited resources. So it's important you share your protocols and then your methodologies. Then we can also talk about open publishing. Even before you start conducting your research, you should think about it. So you consider, do I want to publish my work as a preprint? And then if you want to publish your research as a preprint, which is the ideal platform, let's say you are a researcher in the physics field, so you can talk about Physics Archive. If you are in Africa, you can talk about Africa Archive. If you are in the biological sciences, you can talk about Bio Archive, so discovery will be easy. So if you want to kind of work in an open workflow manner, you also consider this, I mean, sharing your research findings by posting it early as preprints on servers like these platforms, and then getting feedback from them. And if you are publishing your work too, this is also quite very important. If you are publishing your work too, make sure you submit it to a journal that supports open access and open peer review. So that when your journal is, your paper is accepted and they review it, the review becomes open, and this is beneficial to you and for the people that will come and read your paper or kind of access your paper, because the review is open. You know what was said, when it was said, you know how you can also provide constructive feedback, and how you receive and provide constructive feedback. So it's important that when you are submitting your research to journals, you consider this too. And it should also be open access. And it will be good when it's diamond, where it's not like you pay, you submit it, you pay, and then it's only free, or it's you pay and then you have to have institutional access, stuff like that. No, if you submit it, it's easily accessible to everyone. It's important that you consider these things. So your research, people can easily access your research, and like you said, the earlier principles, transparency, reproducibility, and collaboration, so that they can access it, they can reproduce or replicate it, and they can also collaborate with you in case they want to build on it. So these are things you can do when you are publishing your research. So this is just a guideline. It's just a guideline of what you can do as a researcher when you know about all these tools, all these principles, all these platforms, all this knowledge. How can you integrate them into your research? So you talk about the planning phase, we talk about when you're conducting the research, we talk about when you're reporting, things you can consider as a researcher to ensure that at the end of the day, your research is open from beginning to end. Now we are going to talk about workflow managers. It can be a bit difficult as an individual trying to use various tools. I mean, you have to go to this platform, use this, go to this platform, use this, go to this platform, use this. It can be a bit confusing. It can be a bit difficult kind of keeping up with the various tools and resources you have to use and manage. And even if they are installed on your device, a lot of them are coming up with different outputs. I mean, you use, let's say, tool 1 at the planning stage, and then the output you have to go into tool 2 for the next stage. It can be a bit confusing. So that is where workflow managers come in. So these are just platforms that help you to organize and manage the various stages of an open research workflow. So workflow managers consider the fact that, okay, when you want to do a research, you start with the planning, you start with, let's say, discovery and everything. You start with conducting, you start with, let's say, collecting your data and analysis, then you go to, let's say, the reporting or sharing phase, where you are kind of making your research outputs available openly. And what they do is that it's a single platform that will allow integration and use of various tools. So all the tools that you can use at the various stages of the research workflow, you can just integrate them into one platform, which makes it so easy, right? So when you are planning, when you're documenting, when you're sharing, you can just do it on one platform using
Emmanuel, just slow down a bit. Sorry.
Oh, sure. When I'm in my mood, I just start.
Yes, I understand that.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, you are my let's say rate limiting step. So thank you for bringing this up.
No worries.
Yeah. So what they allow you to do is that they allow you to integrate like various tools to help you in planning, documenting, and sharing your research. And we are looking at a classic example is the open science framework developed by the Center for Open Science. So there's a collaboration and workflow management platform. You can easily go to their website and then see how the tool is. They organize training sessions on how you can use the tool. So when you go to the OSF, it has various stages of the research workflow, and the various tools you can kind of integrate there. So there's just an image that talks about the OSF platform and the various tools you can use. So you can realize that these are just plenty. A lot of tools, a lot of options. So you need a platform that will help you integrate them easily. And that's what OSF does. So if you want to, let's say, start your research by discovering papers that have been there, you can use Vivo. And then if you want to kind of develop an idea and then how you can also get your research idea, you can use platforms like Zito and Mendeley, because they help you know the research that has been done, access the papers, read through, and then come up with your hypothesis. And then we talked about DMP2, which can use to develop a data management plan. And then when you want to acquire material, so these are various tools that you can use at each stage, from search and discovery to publishing your report. So that is what OSF can do. And the idea is that the tool you use depends on convenience and on your own experience. If you have a tool that you think you are more familiar with, that maybe can help you integrate all these things, it's okay. If you also think you would want to learn some of these tools, you can just go online and do them. If you have your own way of doing some of these things, you can document them and then share it with your team and understand that this is how you do it and this is how you make it open. So how you kind of create an open research workflow when you want to do your research is down to you and what you want to do. But it's important that you understand open research principles. You know open research tools, and then you know when and at each stage how you're going to use all of these tools. So that's just a general idea when you want to develop an open research workflow when you're conducting a research. Yeah. So
Emmanuel, sorry, before you move, like I just, for those who are not familiar, if you can go back to the other slide, to the
Okay.
previous slide.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. So what OSF does is it basically brings together all of the different tools that we discussed during the previous stages in this presentation. So it brings them all into one place so that you don't really have to, go from one platform to the other, from one platform to the other. So once you use the OSF platform, then you have access to all of these other tools that will help you to create and work in an open workflow. So this is because I felt like some people might be confused on what OSF does. So this is simply what it does. It just saves you the trouble of having to go to each website, to each tool, and then use it separately, and then collect the information separately. So now in the OSF you have everything in one place, and it makes it easier for you.
Yeah, great. And
Yeah.
it's important to know that the tools here, it's not like you have to use every tool here, right? The tools are just examples. So preference would be on the kind of work you are doing or the field you are in. So maybe a coder would prefer GitHub because they are working with code, right? So, but you may prefer, let's say, a different tool. So it depends on you. And what OSF does is that it's just okay, Pauline has a hand raised.
Yeah.
So I'll give you the option, Pauline, to talk. So what OSF does is that it just allows you, let's say if you have a tool that you are familiar with at each and every one of these stages, even if it's not here, you can integrate it. That's something that OSF does. They are just improving it. They are always looking for recommendations. So if you think there is a tool you use and the tool is very good at any of the research stages, you can just recommend it to OSF that this tool is there. I mean, I would want you to integrate it too. And it's something that they do. That's why you have a lot of tools now, and the tools will be increasing so that it makes it easier for any researcher, regardless of the field that you are in, to be able to kind of use the platform easily. Yeah, Pauline, you can unmute yourself on top. Hello,
Thank
Pauline.
you. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. It's afternoon here in Zambia. My question is on the OSF. When you log in, does it mean that you're automatically logged into the other systems, or you have to log in individually?
Yeah. So what OSF does is that it gives you the option to choose the tools you want to use. That's what it does. So it has some of these tools integrated. Let's say someone may have Google Drive integrated as their data storage. Another one would have Dropbox. So the options are there. You decide. Let's say if I want to do search and discovery, the tools are, let's say, 10. There are 10 tools generally globally that you can use to do search and discovery. But I prefer, let's say, Zotero or Mendeley or Vivo. It depends on your preference. So you can decide that I want this tool and I will integrate it into my workflow. So the tools are there. They can easily be integrated based on your preference. So that is what it does. So when you join the, it's not like as soon as you join the your workflow, every tool becomes part of your workflow. No, you can tailor your workflow based on the tools you want. So your workflow could have just 10 of these tools at each stage, whilst another person could be using maybe 20, depending on the kind of work they are doing. So it depends on you. You go there, the tools that have been integrated are there. If you want to, let's say, store your data in Google Drive, you can choose Google Drive. If you want to use Dropbox, you can choose Dropbox. That is based on your preference. Maybe you have a Dropbox account that you've been storing your research data for a long time. So that is where you want to store your data. So you can choose on OSF that I want to store my data on Dropbox, and you can link your personal Dropbox to your OSF account. So that is how they do. So they allow you to integrate your tools. It's like, this is the tool I use. OSF says, okay, bring it here. We'll help you keep it here so that every stage of the work, you don't have to just be moving around, going here. So if you do any changes to your data on OSF that is stored in your Dropbox, it reflects there. So they kind of help you link everything. So like Clamis was saying, you don't have to be switching between tabs or software or platforms every time. It just makes it easier for you. Whilst you are going through your OSF, let's say, account or framework, you are also using the various tools at the same time. Like, it just makes it so easy to do some of these things. I don't know if I was able to answer your question clearly for you.
Okay. So it gives you the options. So once you've picked on your options, like the ones that you want to use, you still
Yes,
have to
yes.
log in and create accounts in those different tools, right?
Yeah. Some of them would require you to have accounts so that they can track your data or inputs there, like Dropbox, Google Drive. Ideally, you need to have accounts on these platforms. So you can just link it to your OSF platform. You just let's say Aaron has a Google Drive. If Aaron creates an OSF account, instead of trying to upload every file that we have since we set up Aaron, we can just integrate our Google Drive into OSF so that all the files we have in our Google Drive would easily be accessible in the OSF platform based on how we kind of make it. So we can decide that, okay, this folder should be open. If someone comes to my OSF platform, they should be able to access maybe the local network lead training folder because I've made it open. I can also make others closed. So what OSF does is that whatever you would have been doing in, let's say, your other softwares, let's say for data collection, like let's say you are using Galaxy, whatever you were doing there, you can just integrate it and then the results and everything just show there. You can make changes and it's linked. So it makes it easier. So rather than go here and come back, go here and come back, everything is just linked. If you do changes in your Galaxy and it is linked with your OSF, the results reflect. You get it? So that is how it does. And it allows version control in the sense that the changes that are done, it tells you that, okay, you did these changes on this day. Then the next day you did this change. So you can go back to the previous versions and say, okay, these are the changes I did previously. So I want to revert to it, or I want to keep the new one. So it's how it works. So it's just there. The tools are there. You can just integrate the ones you want. It's as simple as that. Yeah. I don't know if it clears that.
Yes,
I
it's
have
good.
just
Thank you.
pasted into the chat a video that OSF has. They have a lot of tutorials online. It's
Yeah.
a really popular tool that's currently being used. So if you go on YouTube and just type OSF, you'll find like a lot of webinars, a lot of tutorials. So I also pasted into the chat one of their like introductory videos that they had. And I think we could maybe try in the future to see the possibility if we can get someone from OSF to do like a training specifically for you. We'll try to do that, even though like this level is packed. But I think we could try to do that. And one other thing before we have two raised hands, Pauline asked an important question about that after you register your study and protocol, like what is the fear, the inherent fear of that your work is going to be used by others before the original owner. So I wanted to say that actually pre-registration was done to answer this fear, you know, because when you pre-register your study, you will say that I am the first one. You have a stamp on time to say that you were the first one who came up with this idea, who started working on this idea. So actually, I think it's in a way it protects this. You know, you don't have the fear that someone will scoop your things and then post like paste them at their own ideas. Like you already like came up with the idea, you already put everything out there, so everyone knows that you are the original owner of this idea. And of course, we cannot say that we will prevent scooping, because scooping could happen, but now you have proof. You have proof that you came up with this idea, you know, you're the one who planned it from the very beginning. And also one thing is that probably like the other people, and being open is we're trying to get out of this mindset, you know, we're trying to get out of this mindset that, oh, this is mine, I'll have it. The idea of being open is that you actually allow others to take advantage of your ideas and of your data and of your findings, you know, because eventually probably they will not be this, like they will not use the same population or the same data or the same, you know, samples that you're using. There's definitely going to be a difference. So also I think this inherent fear of being scooped, we should also try to, you know, break away from it. It's difficult. It's difficult because we've been stung a lot, I think, as Africans, where we had some really original ideas, and then we had some people just, scoop them and go do them. But I think when we have this pre-registered, this hypothesis, this idea pre-registered, it actually shows the whole world that we were the original creators of this idea. So I hope this answers your question, Pauline. And there was also another question from Modesta.
Voice is off.
So I had to change it. Here comes the benefit of version control. Have it on the open, that this was your original plan. And if you have to create another version to say like this plan did not work.
Hello, Lamis, you are breaking off. So we can't really hear everything you are saying. Is that from my end, or that's the same with everyone?
No, Lamis is actually
No,
breaking.
no, Lami is
Okay.
Lamis
She's
is-
breaking.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
breaking
I
up,
think
what she-
equally. I'm getting
Yeah.
Lamis is kind of
Yeah.
breaking up.
Yeah, so what she was saying is that it is possible to change it because most of these platforms that allow pre-registration allows version control like OSF. So it depends on the platform that you are using. And the fact that we do acknowledge that the research process changes. And the next session that we are going to do after this, the second open research workflow session is actually going to answer this question about whether you can change your protocol analysis. It's an interesting question, and I'm sure at our next session, which is going to be held by Octopus AC, we are going to introduce you to a certain publishing platform that makes it easy to publish your research openly in a very simple manner that you can change anything at any stage and at any point in time. So yes, it's possible. And we do acknowledge that research, eventually, just like when you publish your paper and you are asked to do certain changes to what you submitted, it can happen that you need to review what you submitted and then work on it. Even after you are done with the research, you can be asked to review it. So the plan too, you can be asked to review it. I mean, when you submit your, let's say your plan to a journal and then they review, they can tell you that, oh, we suggest this thing. It could be that they could present you with a review that, or improvements on the plan that you can change. So it depends on the platform you are using. You can always change stuff. I mean, it's not like a rigid process where you know that you want to adapt something or change something, use a different thing, and like, no, you said it. So that's not how it is. But the idea of, yeah, Lamis, are you back?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened. Just one important thing that I wanted to get through is that the idea is that when you have this plan open, when you change the plan, you'll also have the reasons why you change this plan open. And this is very important, because someone else might have been thinking about the same plan, but then when they come and read that you encountered certain issues in this plan and it didn't work, then you will save them time and effort and money in reusing that plan.
Yeah. I think there's another
We
question.
have 3 hand raised.
Yeah. So
Yeah. I think Ahmed was the
So
first one.
Lamis, so
Okay.
Lamis, I want to suggest something. Why can't we try finishing the session, the presentation, then after that we come to the hand raise and answer.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So Ahmed, Daniel, and who else? That there was 3 hand raised, and Howard. Would it be
Howard.
possible for us to finish I think we have only one more slide left.
Just one slide. So
Yeah.
it's just a few statements. So
and then we can go to the Q&A. Yeah.
Okay, that works too. So yeah, sure. So the final thing that we're going to talk about when it comes to an open research workflow is that, yes, of course, we know that not every aspect of your data should be exposed. I mean, for everyone to take or use. These are genuine concerns, right? Some aspects of your data may be sensitive. So doing or conducting research in an open manner doesn't mean everything is exposed. We established this the last time we had some of the sessions on reproducibility and open data. There are ethical issues to be concerned about. And you also consider what the funder or your institution requires of you in terms of sharing data openly. So doing an open research workflow doesn't mean every data is exposed, but as much as you can share, The idea is share it. Don't keep it to yourself, share it. Then the next one is that make sure you apply appropriate open licenses. It's important. I mean, we learned licensing when we were talking about, open repositories. I remember we did this when we were talking about open repositories and open access, that we talked about licenses and how licenses tell people how your work can be used or reused. So it's important to tell people that I want credit for this when you are sharing my work, or when you are using it. It's important to use this. Apply them to all the information you share out there. Don't just apply them to maybe your publication or your data. Apply them to all of it so that people know that this is how you want your work to be used or reused. I think this also kind of takes away the fear of being scooped up concerns around how your data is being used. When people know the licenses that are applied to your work, they know the restrictions that they have to go by, and they will give you the credit when they have to give you the credit. So it's important you consider the licenses you use when sharing your data at any stage of your research process. Consider the license that you are going to apply. Even if it's an image, apply a license. When you develop an image, apply a license. When you develop a protocol, apply every part of the research work that you share. Make sure you apply a license. It's important. And then make sure you use DOIs or PIDs for all research outputs to ensure they can be reliably cited and accessed. The fact that something is online doesn't mean it's easily accessible. That's something that we need to know about. So one of the things that open access has been doing has been digital object identifiers or personal identifiers. So this help a document or whatever is online to be easily accessed based on a unique ID. So what this does is that they give your document, whether it's a protocol, whether it's a data set, whether it's your publication, or whether it's an image, they give you an ID that you can easily say, go to use this link and go here. You find the IDs, and quite important that you apply this to all your outputs too. So that if you have a profile on, let's say, ORCID, or let's say you are trying to share your research, data openly, you can say, okay, I've submitted them on this platform. This is the ID. It makes it easier. Rather than having everything like in one place, you can just have a links to all your information. Let's say your protocol, the ID of your protocol, the ID of your data set, the ID of the images that you developed and everything. It's important that you apply them. It makes it easy for people to access whatever you've shared. So you need to consider this too. And so thank you very much for this section. Lamis, I think before we go to the breakout room, we'll allow people to ask the question. It looks like OSF has really picked a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think because we did say this session is an hour, right, Emmanuel? It's supposed to be an hour.
Yeah, initially,
yeah. So we do acknowledge, guys, if you have to hop off because we exceeded our time.
Yeah.
If you have to hop off, then that would be completely okay. I think from now on, we should plan our sessions to be an hour and a half at least.
Hour and a half, yeah.
Yeah, but if you can stick around, that would be great. So yeah. I think we could go with the questions. Ahmed, please.
Yeah, hello, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah,
great. So thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Lamis, for the wonderful session. I wanted to add something. It's not a question, but it's
Great.
about the Center for Open Science tools,
Great.
and especially for the OSF.
Great.
The COS, they have an Open Science Ambassadors community, and I think Emmanuel is also a member of that community, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
So the fellow colleagues, and then we can also register in that if someone is interested. For example, since we are taking, for sure, we are already interested in open science practices, we can register in the COS ambassadors community. And the other thing is that the main website, there are mainly two different websites, a website for the center itself, COS, and another website for the open science framework. So if you go, for example, in the Center for Open Science website, there is a mailing list or newsletter subscription that you can put your email in, and you will regularly, monthly, I think, receive newsletter emails. And in fact, I was looking at 2 minutes ago, they have an upcoming seminar titled Getting Started on the OSF, a hands-on guide. It's on July 8th. And I will share that link after the session in the Slack. So yeah, then I just wanted to add that.
You can also share it here, Ahmed, in the chat if possible, because not everyone is on Slack. Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
that's
that means
amazing.
you were saying that the COS, if they organize, for example, a seminar, if you
Yeah.
have one specific for the RN community, it's great, but
Yes.
they try their best to make these tools available. So I
Yeah,
shared the link,
yeah.
the
That's
event.
great. Thank you.
You will find that program. Thank you.
Splendid, splendid, yeah.
Next we have Daniel. Daniel, you can unmute.
Good afternoon from Malawi.
Right.
I have a single question. When we're talking about planning, you can plan very well, but when it comes to implementation, you might you might feel there's something to change. Now, I have a question on the institutional review board. Where do we place the institutional review board if we solely rely on open science platform? Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's a very good question. But the question is, the important thing is that when you are planning your research, when does the institutional review board come in? Do they come in before you conduct your research or after you conduct your research, or they come in at both stages? And the idea is that when you are conducting your research openly, it even makes it easier for the institutional review board when they are reviewing your research work, or if it's a plan, when they are reviewing your plan, or if it's your profile, when they are reviewing your profile, because they know that whatever you've done, they can easily access anything that is linked to it, right? So the idea of an open research workflow is not to eliminate these entities, but to find a way to ensure that when you are communicating with these entities, you provide as much information as possible. So that is the idea of open science. So it doesn't really take away the institutional review board, or what they are supposed to do. No. And when they review your workflow, or your plan, or let's say your research work, like Lamis was saying, it's important to always make people understand why you are doing something the way you are doing it. So I think earlier we talked about ensuring that everyone as a part of your team is kind of trained to understand why you are conducting your research openly. So the institutional review board may not be familiar with some of the concepts you are applying in your research, let's say open concepts, and maybe the tools you are using. So it's on you to kind of document why you are using some of these things and how it will make your research open and improve, let's say, visibility, impact, or reproducibility. So these are things you can present to them. It may take convincing, but I'm sure any review board that is interested in quality work or impactful work will not go against the idea of conducting research openly, unless it goes against ethical issues, or let's say certain rules and regulations within the institution that are not really bad, but let's say control how information is shared. So I'm sure that is the case. I don't know if I've answered your question correctly, or Lames has any other inputs, or maybe if I even understood that. Yeah. So was the question answered correctly?
Yeah, you understood the question, but it has partly been answered simply because I was looking at the point when you would like to amend your protocol. So you have to ask the institutional review board for expedited review of your protocol. So my question is, when do we do this in open science?
I think there are sort of two things that goes in parallel, you know. Because of course, when you're conducting a research within an institution, you have to abide by the different rules that this institution have, you know. So for example, also just like you've shared your protocol openly, you also share your protocol to your institution and they approve it, and they give you, you know, the sort of the stamp that you can start. But then once you have, you know, now it's the time that you had some problems and the results are not coming as you wish, or, you know, you had to change the protocol, we know that you also have to submit that to your institution and ask them, you know, to approve the new protocol. So I think if it was me, you know, I don't think there's a rule for that, but if it was me, I would first, of course, go to my institution and submit the new protocol. And once I get it approved, then I go directly to my open research tool or platform, the place where I'm sharing my protocol. Then I explain, you know, I encountered this and this problem with that protocol. So I had to change this protocol to that protocol. And this was, you know, you can add that or not, you know, this was approved by the institution. And sometimes they give you like a number for the ethical approval, you know, through this ethical approval number. So this is how I would do it. But I think, you know, these are things that you have to go do them in parallel, because the institution, you know, you cannot incorporate it into your open research workflow. You know, you cannot make them abide by that. But what you can do is that abide by the rules of your institution, but then update your open research workflow with this information, so that when, for example, I come and look at Daniel's research, I have that, you know, the whole story from the beginning. He used this protocol, and this were the issues that happened. So then he changed to this protocol and he approved this protocol from his institution. So this also know that you are doing this ethically, you know, you're not doing it out of your own head. So I hope that this answered your question, Daniel.
Exactly, that has been answered now. Thank you.
Perfect. Perfect. I think we have now Zoe. Zoe has her hand raised.
Thank you.
Okay.
My question is for published reports, can I use PKP also? Is also good and open access has OGS?
I think you're talking about a platform, another platform, right?
Okay. But we want to make our scientific journal open access, and we want to use PKP.
Better too.
PKP. Could you write it in the chat?
Yeah, or share
yeah.
a link to the platform.
Yeah.
Yes. PKP.
I think there are some interesting questions.
PKP is
Okay, let me check it out.
also, yes.
Yeah.
No, you can talk about it, Zoe.
Yeah, go ahead.
You can talk about it, Zoe.
It is good. You don't understand my question?
I think it's called a public knowledge project. Is that it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think any platform that you feel comfortable in, you can use it. Like, definitely there is no, you know, one platform that is better than the other, because also some platforms support certain disciplines. You know, like they're more into social sciences. Some platforms are all into like medical research, clinical trials. So yeah, there are so many platforms out there, and as Emmanuel said in his presentation, like we only gave you just like a few examples of some of these platforms. But definitely, if it's something that you've been working with and you feel comfortable about, then yeah, you could definitely use it. It will be good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Howard, I think Howard has had his hand raised for a long time. Howard, you can go ahead.
Wait, that is quite fine.
Could you raise your voice, Howard?
Yes. The area I'm talking about is
Hello, Howard, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, now I hear you.
I'm talking about the workability for OSF. Can I combine NeuroVot and GitHub as a researcher to integrate into the platform for the workflow in OSF?
Yeah, Howard. Yeah, thank you very much. I think how the OSF works is that they are always looking at integrating new tools that researchers suggest. So I don't know if the tools that you are talking about, all of them have been integrated. I do know GitHub has been integrated, was in the image. But there are two that you mentioned. I don't know if it has been integrated, but if it has not been integrated, you can check to see if you can do that. If you can't do that, then you can just recommend to them. That's something they have been doing. I mean, I remember I attended one of their sessions and they said they are constantly taking inputs from researchers about the tools that they're using. And then, I mean, whether they can integrate them into the platform too. Sorry to put you on the spot. Ayola, are you online?
Okay,
there?
I would like. Yes, I'm on Neurovot and also on GitHub.
Okay, that's great. Hello, Ayola, are you here with us right now? Because I do remember Ayola.
I'm here.
Yeah, I were you part of the people that were trained by OSF, or if I got that wrong?
Part of people trained by OSF.
You are one of them.
Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can also share your ideas about OSF, because I remember that we had an input from COS that some of our trainees were trained by them. So if you can also share your ideas about the OSF, because a lot of people are interested in it.
Interested in the OSF training or?
Yeah, the Open Science Framework platform. I think the immunology training around OSF, were you part? I remember we had an input from, I don't know if I got the name wrong though, but I remember there was a Ayola part. If that was you, I was asking for input.
Yes. That was one of those who were trained. I think I underwent the training twice.
Okay.
The first one was in 2002, 2003 thereabouts, and the second one was in 2003. Towards the end of 2003. And they were actually the one that introduced me to hearing. And during the first training, I was, that was the first time of hearing about the OSF actually.
Okay.
And it has been upgraded. And I've been able to train up to maybe 20 to 30 people. And where I work, I was the one that introduced OSF to them. Okay. And I'm a PhD student also, and also some of my students also have been able to share my knowledge with them regarding OSF. It has been upgraded, it has been an eye-opener, and it has been helping me regarding my research work, and since I've been part of the training.
Okay, so regarding the questions that were asked, do you have any expert input around the OSF, like the tool integration and stuff like that? Do you have any inputs that you think you could add? Sorry to put you on the spot, but it would be lovely to hear what you think.
Can you come again, please?
I said regarding, there were a lot of questions that were asked around, how the platform works and how you can integrate tools. If you join, do all the tools become accessible and stuff like that? I think since you've been using it for a while, if you could share how the experience has been using the platform and how you use the tools that you use on the platform.
Actually, regarding that, I've been lacking in that area.
Okay.
So I just know that with OSF, you can link that with tools like Mendeley, Zenodo, and all the rest. Okay. But I've not been able to.
You know, Emmanuel, I come to think that we have to have this training with OSF since there is this much interest in it, and we already we have some from the Center of Open Science who are going to do training on level 3. So we do have that line of communication with them, and we will try our best to include this training in this level, hopefully.
Yeah, so that's an extra session more.
Yeah. I think Joseph has a question, and also Modester has a comment. Very interesting, but let's go to Joseph first. Yeah.
Those are nice questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Lamis and Emmanuel. Mr. Emmanuel. Okay. I have a little miscomprehension about the pre-registration for the idea for research. I suppose that I have a discover about a plant, and must I open my idea to public before elaborate my discover, or I must finish to conduct my research, discover the results of my research before now going to put all that on some platform as you have said it. That is my question, because I think that it will not be better to publish my idea, because we have some institution as a patent institution who help to protect ideas. As the idea is a very have a economic strategical that ideas are strategic or economical, so we must to avoid publishing that idea before finish the research. And I think when we finish the result and we discover the idea, the result, so now we can go to patent and to publish the results, the methodology, and then so on and so on and so on. That's the reason why I asked the question: if all platforms you show us legal to defend the researcher idea when it will be a conflict that will enter in conflict.
Okay.
That is my question. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I think I've just seen your question about the legal scope of these platforms for defending research ideas in the event of a conflict of attribution, right? Yeah. And I think you said it in relation to your submission now. I think that's a very good question, Joseph. And the reality is that when you look at a lot of the concepts and the principles that are proposed in open science right now, they are easier to implement in certain research domains than others. That is the reality. And that is why we are trying to ensure that marginalized areas would have discussions with them, because like we are talking about pre-registration, but then here lies the case, like you were saying, where it could be the development of a product that could have economical, implications, right? It could be beneficially good for, let's say, a country or for the person that came up with the idea. So the idea needs to be protected. So the idea of pre-registering how to come about it may not be really feasible. I do get you. So yeah, there are concerns, but like we said earlier in our submission, that when you are planning an open research workflow, you have to consider whether the information can be shared or not. It's quite important you consider that whether the information can be shared or not. So I think someone asked a question about the institutional review board and then how they can.
Yes.
So it's about whether you ask yourself whether the information can be shared or not, and whether there are rules and regulations you have to go by, like ethical implications, could be institutional, it could be about your field, that you have to consider before you even start about saying I'm sharing this or I'm sharing that. So like if there is an institutional review board, you have to consider their input before you say you are sharing your protocol or whatever that you want to share. So I think it's a genuine concern, and it depends on what you are trying to do. But the interesting thing about I think open research or open science, like Lamis was saying, is that it also protects you. It also protects you from all these things, because we said whatever you share, you should establish a license. So the license tells whether people can use your idea or not. You get it? So these are also established to protect what you share. So when you can share something and say, no one can use this. If you use this, these are the issues behind. And if you remember, there are a lot of licenses that only not apply to the research. It can be, there are a lot of licenses that apply to tools, a lot of licenses that apply to code, software. So that's why we said apply appropriate licenses. Know the licenses that you can apply, so that even if it's there, it's online, people cannot steal it or reproduce it. Like right now, there are a lot of tools out there, there are a lot of software out there, but not anyone can say I'm creating the same thing, because there is a license attached to it. So the license protects the output. So make sure when you are doing open sharing of anything, you also understand these licenses, because they are what protects what you put out there. So that could really help and kind of answer or solve the problem that you are talking about.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, Lamis, if you have any other inputs. And I've also seen that Ahmed has the hand raised.
Yeah,
Maybe
there's a comment.
Yeah, maybe Ahmed. Yeah.
Yes, Emmanuel. So yeah, I agree with you. When we say open science, it's not like open everything. And also, especially in some research programs or projects, other than the IRBs or institutional review bodies, if there are, for example, people that are tasked to work in the things that relate to IP rights, for example, if the institution has an intellectual property office, one can consult with them before moving to the next steps, for example, to make the project open and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So
hello.
Modesta's question, right? I think is an interesting question.
Yeah. Someone wants Pauline. Is it Pauline?
Yes.
Okay.
I would just like to share one of the concerns that was raised by a researcher, just in line with what Joseph just brought. So we're being trained on open science, just introduction to open science, and open data, and putting things open before you finalize your research. So his concern, the example that he gave was, for example, as Africa, you discover that there's a plant that can be used to make medicine, or maybe some medicine to cure a certain disease, and then you put it online openly to say, in Zambia, let's say in such a place, there's this plant that can be used to come up with this drug. That is in your proposal and everything else, and then it's open. And you find that as you are still looking for resources to ensure that you conduct your research, you do the experiments, and you develop that drug, you have those that already have the finances, for example, maybe from the Western countries. They have read online through the open science platform that there's this plant in Zambia, and unknowingly, without informing you, they locate that plant, they collect the plant, and then they go back to their country, and then they develop that drug before you, the person that discovered that plant, can even do anything. So that was one of the examples that he gave, like where you publish openly, yes, but then there are those that are faster and have the resources to do things behind you. So how do you protect them?
Yeah.
Because we have so many ideas that are stealing by financial by enterprises, industries, and they go to transform it. But if it's not protected, it's not patented, you see, it will be very difficult for the researcher to promote his research. And that is the idea.
Yeah, and I think we all agree that this is a genuine concern, right? I mean, it's something that has always been discussed whenever we have these conversations around open science and openly sharing your research input and etc. I mean, that's one of the major concerns around preprints, even that people, even when you are done with the research and you publish as a preprint, someone could scoop it because it's not published in a journal. So it's a concern that exists from the beginning to the end, even after you are done conducting the research. Licenses may help, but they may not be able to protect everything. So I think it's important to consider what you are doing. I mean, I think that's something that we have to apply. What are you trying to do? Is this something like, I think someone made that input, I think it was Joseph, right? That could have, let's say, economically beneficial for the country or for you. Then you have to consider how you're going to share it. That's why we said, in planning an open research workflow, decide on the research. What are your objectives? What are you trying to do? And do you think it will be beneficial to share it at the beginning, or it will be best for you to share certain aspects at the beginning, then maybe at the end you will share everything openly? So you have to decide what you are going to do. Know your research. If you know the research you're trying to do and understand the impact it's going to have or what you're trying to find out, then you will know whether I can make the idea open, pre-register it or not. And what you also have to understand is that the workflow is not compulsory. The aspects of the workflow is not compulsory. It's not compulsory that everyone here when you are doing your research, you pre-register it. It's not compulsory. It's ideal when you do it. And like we said, it's easier for certain fields because or certain work, because what that research is just collaborative, open. You are just trying to find something that may not just have any economical benefit. But then if you are doing something that is tied to, let's say, developing products, let's say in drug development, you are trying to see how you can use a compound to develop a certain product. I mean, where like Joseph was saying, there are issues around patenting, and then someone could steal your idea and then patent it, and then they say it's DS. Then you have to consider all these things. That's why at the beginning, know the objectives, know what you're trying to achieve, know the ethical implications around sharing the information before you decide that I'm going to have an open data management plan or this or that. So these are things you have to really consider at the beginning. If you consider all these things, you discuss it with your team, you discuss your review board or your funders and everything, and then the consensus is that it won't be ideal to share certain aspects of your research at the beginning. You just go with that. I think that is why we have to understand. Open science is trying to make the process open, but it's not trying to establish a rigid rule that says, if you want to make your research open, do all of these things. No, do the aspects you can do, because there are institutional differences, there are national differences, there are discipline differences, and every funder also has their requirements. So you have to consider all these things before you share your data openly. That's something that we really have.
I wanted to add something that connects Modester's very interesting comment to what has been currently said. One of the main goals that we established RN for is that we wanted to talk to you guys who are doing the research, because we know open science is a Western concept, yes. And there, like what you said, Modester, could be a genuine thing, like maybe because this is what we used to have, from the global north. They're trying to like come up with things that would help them become more embed and benefit more from our communities. So this is actually what we're trying to do, and this is when me and Manuel have meetings with international collaborators. We tell them, like, for example, like we had a discussion with Johnny and about preprints and the importance of preprints. We did tell them, like, scooping is a genuine concern for us in Africa. It's not something that could happen, but it's something that did happen to many of us, and it happened a lot. It's not that uncommon. This is what happened. So what we want to do is from by the end of this training program is we want to raise concerns like this, so that the global north are like, they're puzzled. Why wouldn't people in Africa and in the global south take up open science, even though it's something that's very good? Like they promote all the benefits of open science, but they sort of forget the challenges and the dangers that also comes with open science. So this is why we want us as Africans to have a voice, and we tell them, oh yes, we do acknowledge that open science is good, it has a lot of benefits, but we also have concerns, and we have the right to have these concerns. So, and we also have the right to choose open science the way that it suits us. This is what Emmanuel was saying. You don't have to like go through the whole open research workflow and pre-register your idea or something. But to me, as an African scientist, I have my genuine concerns, and my experience, my actual experience, is not just thoughts. These are experience that we had, as researchers. So then we come up with, with the recommendation to the global north. So like, we will not be doing that, because of this and this and this and that. So we want to answer, like, to give an answer to them, like why open science is not widely spread in Africa. So I'm really happy with this discussion, and what you said, Modester, is very interesting and very true. Very true, to be honest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Lamis, you are right. And like Lamis was
Modester,
saying,
I think Modester wants to comment.
Okay, she has something to say. Okay,
please go ahead.
Yeah, that was my concern. Now, I might face such kind of question with my fellow. So answering it have enlightened me some input, so that whenever I face such kind of question, I should be able to answer it in a very good manner.
Yes, definitely. And you know what I always tell you guys and all even my students, you know, I want us to get out of this mindset that, you know, we have to follow what the Global North is doing. We have to get out of this mindset because we are our unique selves. We are our unique communities. And we also, maybe this way works for the Global North, but it would not work for us as Africans. So don't be scared to, you know, to push this agenda.
Yeah, thank you very much, Modesta and Lamis. Like we are trying to the whole idea of RNS to get the community together, get the researchers together, tell them that this is what is going on. Let them tell us whether it's going to work or not. That's the whole idea. I think we said it in some of our earlier sessions that we just want to know if what the world is saying that open science is good, is it really good? I think these are even concerns that there's one of our collaborators, Tony Ross Helwa. I think he wrote an article about the fact that open science, everyone says open science is good, but we have to take a second look, right? There's someone from the Global North, but he wrote an article around that because everyone is saying open science is good, but is it really good? And if we think it's not good, why do you think it's not good? Why do you think, let's say, it is not feasible for an African to, let's say, pre-register their research? Why do you think it's not good for an African to publish a preprint? We need to know, and that's why we are trying to have these community sessions and etc. to know what is really on the ground. Because if someone says, if I have a product I want to develop and I have to do a research to test whether the product is good and I have to first pre-register like it's compulsory, then what if a company in the European or in the USA scoops it? And there's a genuine concern. And we all know that legally they are much more powerful than us. So if you try to fight them legally, you will lose. So there's a genuine concern. One of the reasons why when we have these discussions and then you are bringing this input, we are so excited because you are giving us information that we can share with them when we have conversation that this is the reason why this may not work or this may work. And if you want this to work, we think we should do it this way because the way you are saying it, it's not applicable to the people here. So we maybe change that. So it's really a wonderful inputs that you are giving. Thank you so much for this. It's been enlightening for us too.
Yeah. And I think one last thing is that we, like, our role at AREN as well is that we want to be the link for you. You know, we want to transfer all what we see on the world of open science and give it to you. But this does not mean that you have to use it. You exactly. So please keep that in mind. As we always tell you, me and Emmanuel, we're not experts in open science. We are not experts, definitely. We're learning with you actually in this journey. So please put this, take this into consideration.
And also to add to that, Lamis, whenever we are having sessions, I think this is something that we also said earlier. Don't give the trainers just the leverage to just say whatever they have to say and go. No. That's not what we're interested in. An important part of our sessions is whether you think what they are saying will work or not. This is very important for us. This is why we organize this training, not just to give information like that. We want to know whether they will work or not. So if someone says something that do this, you will say, this is not, I can't do this because I don't even have the tool. I don't have the resource. It may be a genuine concern around several resources across Africa. So they are not there to tell you this is good, so do it. They are there to tell, oh, this is good, you can do it. Then you tell them, no, I can't do it because of one or two ways. So always try and see whether the things they are talking about are feasible or not, and then why you think they are not feasible. And whilst you're having the training, you can be having discussions with your community members because they may have different views about whether some of these things are possible or not. Like Pauline was saying, a genuine concern from a colleague, right? And this is a genuine concern. So you can find out some of these things and come and share it with our trainers. Let them know that we know open data is good, but because of these reasons, we can't do it. And maybe they can come up with solutions because they're also connected with some of the organizations that are kind of pushing this agenda. So it's maybe something that they'll consider when they are trying to review whatever they are trying to push. Also, it's great. And it's not compulsory, like I said, you have the freedom. Do what you can do. You can't do all of them now. It's impossible to do everything open science is saying now. You just start bit by bit. Just start with one thing. Let's say You can decide you want preprint, so now you're going to choose preprint, fine, or open data or whatever. Just start small and then build on it. Yeah, so that's the way to go about it. You can't do everything now. It's almost impossible.
Yeah. So wow, I think we're almost 1 hour extra on time.
Yeah, 1 hour.
Yeah. So really thank you guys so much for your time and for sticking around. We always take pride and we tell all our trainers, oh, our trainees will stick for an extra hour if like the discussion is rich and nice. So this is something we're really happy about, and this makes all our like hard work, me and Emmanuel, really pays off, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Finally,
Emmanuel,
there's also one thing I want to add, the fact that we also want you to be a voice, right? We want Aaron to evolve to a position where the community members become a voice in various aspects. Let's say you become a voice in your field, that maybe this will work, this will not work. So that is also something we want to achieve, that eventually, just like right now, Lamis and I are kind of coordinating this, in all of you or some of you would come to a point where you're also leading staff, become a voice in some of these things, whether in your community or whether in your field, or whether it's peculiar to, let's say, an open science principle or concept. We want you to also become a voice. So these are things we also want you to consider, not just to see this as just a training, local network lead training. You become community leaders and you become voices. So yeah, it's splendid to have you here, Lamis. So I think we can end the meeting now, right? Unless there are other
I think we can, if no one else have a question, so I think we could wrap up.
Yeah.
And we see you guys. Our next session is going to be on a platform called Octopus, which is really amazing. Yeah, so really excited to have you there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you
No
very much.
longer, no longer Zoom again.
Thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Lamin. Thank you, guys.
Howard is asking about attendance. It's funny.
Merci beaucoup.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And also one last thing, guys, please, the surveys. I've said that a lot, but please, anyone who didn't do the surveys, please complete them, because today is the deadline. Yeah.
The pre-session survey.
The pre level 2 and the post level 1. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.